Hello and welcome to Oddspedia Premier League Match Day 10. We have Arsenal opening a big gap, 4 points. I would say a big gap. Already super favorites to win the title, 1.4. It was the perfect weekend for them, Tom, with Man City and Liverpool losing, even Chelsea. Hello, Tom. Not spectacular, but this Arsenal looks like a champions team.
They do. They look a lot like the best Mourinho teams of sort of 2004, 2005, 2006, that era. Like, they're pretty unwatchable. Their games are pretty awful to watch from an entertainment perspective, but no one at Arsenal cares about that. They have been a very entertaining team over the years and have not won trophies. So if the trade is we never have a shot and we score from corners, but everyone else hates us and we don't care, I think they'll be fine.
Well, we are also very happy to see Tom Rennie back with us without voice, but your ACCA was correct actually last weekend. So we are happy to see you back. Guys, remember, of course, ask any question to Tom or tell us your tips. Of course, press the like, subscribe. Let's go on now with the show. Let's start with the good games we have on Saturday. So many surprises last weekend. Let's see what happens in this one. Brighton Leeds is the first one. Brighton unbeaten when they are playing at home this season. 2 wins, 2 draws. They are coming back from Old Trafford where they lost, and they deserve to lose, especially in the first half. But at least we saw a great free kick by 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀𝗀, and Leeds got a massive win against West Ham to put a 6-point distance to Nottm Forest. Brighton really favorite because of their home form, probably, Tom.
Yeah, they're undoubtedly a better team at home than they are away this season, Brighton. And I got to say, I was really disappointed with the performance at Old Trafford at the weekend just gone. I think maybe the early goal from 𝘀𝗵cie, 24th minute, upset what was a fairly solid start. But there's all weird things happening at Brighton at the moment. Firstly, I think it's fair to say that 𝘀𝗵𝗏 has struggled so far this season to replicate anywhere near the form that made him so good last season. To have no Mitoma as well is significant because the second rung of Brighton players aren't as good as the first rung. And sort of Bournemouth and a few other teams have kind of taken the Brighton model and right now are doing it better. There's not a great deal of depth in this Brighton squad as there has been in recent years. And the 𝘀𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏 thing is a really curious case in that he can't finish games or sometimes isn't starting games and whatnot. Like the midfield pairing of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Ayari is really good, but it doesn't complete 90 minutes almost ever, which is really odd. So a poor performance for Brighton, a disjointed performance from Brighton, and beyond Danny Welbeck, there's no real bright spots from it from last week. In terms of Leeds, it's really tough to assess them because, and we'll do West Ham later in the programme, what West Ham did in the last week was insane since the last time we spoke. The two teams they put together were so weird that they played perfectly into Leeds' hands on Friday. Like to have a midfield of Tanaka, Ampadu, Longstaff, and they have Stark and a few others, there's not much finesse with Leeds, but there's a real unbelievable work rate with that three, and you've got to match that. And if you match it, the other teams are likely to have the quality to beat them. And West Ham played Andy Irving, who I'm fairly sure is a competition winner, and Thomas Souček, who's never been able to run particularly fast. So really weird, but look, Leeds took full advantage of that. They kept driving through midfield. They ran past the no legs in midfield and kept taking chances, creating chances, and it could have been worse at half-time for West Ham. They really wobbled second half when West Ham put a proper team out, but went on to win. Really impressive victory. So puts this in the balance a bit for me, but I still think Leeds will be in the bottom three come the end of this season. I still don't see a great deal of quality in this Leeds squad, despite a really good win against West Ham. And I sort of feel like Brighton will come good. So take Brighton win first and foremost. I think it's going to be a really, really tight game. I don't discount the draw at 3.6, but feels like a low-scoring Brighton win or a 1-1 draw if Brighton can't get the second goal. The only thing I'm quite sure on is Danny Welbeck, in the form he is in, is well worth an anytime bet.
Beautiful goal he scored from a free kick, and important statement at this moment in time. In Leeds in the bottom three, now they have a 6-point gap with the relegation. So next game is Burnley Arsenal. Also Burnley getting an important distance with the relegation, 5 points ahead of Forest after a massive win in Wolverhampton, scoring in the very last minute. So it's back-to-back wins from Burnley, really important. But of course, here we should talk about Arsenal. So consistent, rock solid, 5 consecutive wins without conceding, is the best defense in Europe. Only 3 goals conceded. You mentioned it in our intro. Not spectacular, but impressive, I would say, in their performance. Winning and opening already a gap in October. Very important for the Gunners.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're unbelievably ugly. They're horrid to watch, and they don't care about it. They're that way by design. Like, they've turned 𝗀𝗻𝗄𝗃 as one of the most exciting strikers in Europe into a battering ram. All he does is run into people and try and win free kicks. The goal comes from Bukayo Saka falling to the ground and winning a free kick. They play for corners consistently. And there's very little attacking verve about the team. They don't really score goals from open play very much. But again, that is by design. Like, I'm not saying this is a criticism. I'm saying it as that's what they're going to do. How do you stop it? How do you stop a team going down the wing, winning a cheap free kick, and they've worked on free kicks all week? It's very difficult to stop that. And it has had a detrimental effect on their football in open play. But again, they're winning, so they do not care. And the back line is probably the strongest in the Premier League. It was Calafiori, Gabriel, Saliba, and Timber, and Raya behind them against Palace. Raya was outstanding as well, I thought, in the game. And so it's all there. And even if there's a doubt about Saliba this week, there's a doubt of Gabriel last week, if they brought in 𝗀𝗻𝗄𝗃 or 𝗀𝗵�ici𝘄, that's great. Great backups for those guys, especially against a Burnley team who, look, what a win against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Absolutely fantastic. I thought the first Fleming goal, if you haven't seen it, was one of the goals of last weekend. Absolutely fantastic. First time, right-footed, Harry Wilson style into the bottom corner. Really impressed with him. But, you know, I watched the game in full and I thought that they weren't amazing, Burnley. I thought Wolves probably deserved something from the game. 2-2 draw felt fair, and maybe Wolves should have gone on to win it, but we'll talk about their lack of quality later. The centre-halves are pretty poor at Burnley, Tuanzebe and Esteve. Not impressed with them. The midfield is a championship midfield, and they've got some good pace on the counter. But look, this is not a great team. And they will look to low block this game to culmination and hope they can get a 1-1 draw, a 0-0 draw, 1-0 win late on. But it's almost impossible to see anyone getting anything against Arsenal. So 2 pretty defensive-minded lineups. I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be corner heavy. I think it's going to be free kick heavy. I think Burnley are going to want to make it stodgy, but that's exactly what Arsenal want, which is weird. When a big team comes to town, you expect them to play you off the park, and I don't think that's what's going to happen here. Take the Arsenal win, obviously, at 1.29. Arsenal win to 0, as usual, at 2. Nice group bet of 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 2.38. Look at the corner market in this game. Very much over 10 corners in this match. And then if it's a corner or a free kick, who's going to score if fit? Look at Gabriel, as ever, from a corner with Rice or Saka to assist as they take the corners.
Were you watching Wolves Burnley? I was so annoyed because I was at the pub watching 𝗀𝗻𝗄𝗃, and I had on one screen one Burnley fan shouting with the volume up, and it's like, please shut up, we are watching 𝗀𝗻𝗄𝗃 instead of Wolves Burnley. But it was not the case for this man.
Good.
Also,
good for that fan. Good for that fan. I admire that.
Was at the same time, I have to say, was not easy to watch.
Wolves Burnley was an amazing game. It was an absolutely amazing game. It was so watchable. It was so wild.
Well, probably this Burnley Arsenal will not be the case. Next one, Crystal Palace Brentford. Palace, as we mentioned, lost to Arsenal. It's 4 winless games now in all competitions. Is 3 in the Premier League without a win since they beat Liverpool, and Brentford is the opposite. They are really in form. 3 wins in the last 4 games, including Liverpool, including Man United. It looks like everyone is beating Liverpool, and both have 13 points, even if at the beginning of the season, Tom, or I think our impression is that Palace were doing a much better season than Brentford.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still think we're a quarter of the way through, and I think we're now at the end of the beginning, right? That's where we are, and I think that Brentford have done really well in the last couple of weeks to move themselves out of the kind of relegation battle conversation. I think they'll go back into it as the weeks go on, but the last week has obviously been sensational for them. Again, we'll do West Ham later, but it's unbelievable to me how pliant West Ham were in that game last Monday. That wasn't the case with Liverpool, and I think that was a really impressive win. I almost learned nothing from the West Ham win on the Friday, no, the Monday previously. But the win against Liverpool was sensational, absolutely sensational. I think that the midfield of Henderson, 𝗀𝗻𝗀 and 𝗀𝗵cie_𝘄 worked really well. You need to rough them up, and if you don't, they'll pop the ball around you like you're not there. The setback to Henderson for the ball over the top is so basic in so many ways. But if you play a high line against them, Jordan Henderson is one of the best passers of the ball over the top in football and has been for 10, 15 years. And Liverpool should have known that, if anyone should have known it last weekend. And they did not seem to know about it. And that 𝗀𝗄𝗿 long throw, like we've spoken about it previously, seeing it in the flesh is wild. And I went to the West Ham game, unfortunately for me, on the Monday last week. And there was one throw where if it didn't get blocked on the way through, it would have made the back post. It's long, it's flat, it's hard, it's fast. It's so difficult to deal with, as Fulham found out, and West Ham found out, and Liverpool found out. And everyone's finding out. He's a very good player on the field as well. But that throw is just unbelievable. And I was listening to Dave Kitson a couple of days ago, played for Stoke in the Rory Delap era. And he was saying to me, the thing is with Delap's throws is they never really made a big plan for it. They were just like, get it in the mixer and we'll cause chaos. It's clear Brentford have got all sorts of plans for where he's going to throw, where it's going to drop. It's a really well thought out line of attack, and no one has got an answer for that at the moment. So really impressed with him, really impressed with them in the last week. But I do think Palace played great against Arsenal. That was a really good performance. And I think that beyond I think it was Larnaca in the Conference League, even when they've lost in this run, they've played pretty well. I still think all the elements are there. I think Wharton, the back three, the front three, all of it is still there. And I think they will turn this minor blip around. I don't think it'll be a top 8 finish. I think it'll be a top 10, top 12 finish for Palace, as we sort of previously expected beyond that incredible run. But I think they will be good enough to win here. I think they're a better side than Brentford. And I think they'll deal with the long throw. With Richards, 𝗀𝗀 and 𝗀𝗍, they'll be able to deal with it in a way that Liverpool and West Ham were not able to. So look at the Palace win at 1.85. It will turn at some point. Why not now? But with Palace struggling, I think they'll go defence first, and it's going to be real difficult to score in this game. So if you do fancy Brentford, follow the same pattern. But I fancy Palace. Under 3.5 goals is 2.75. Under 2.5 goals in a Palace win is 4.5. Screams Mateta 1-0 to me. Absolutely screams it. 0-0 going into the last 10, and Mateta pops up with a winner. But it ain't going to be pretty, but I do think it'll be Palace.
Well, we don't expect a lot of pretty games at this time. Let's see if in Craven Cottage we might see goals. Fulham Wolves, massive one for the relegation battle. Fulham, 8 points, only 3 more than Nottm Forest. Is 4 consecutive defeats for them. Last one 2-1 at the weekend. So the last win was over a month ago, 20th of September, also at home for Wolves. Tom, things are looking really, really bad, especially if you lose against newly promoted teams, I guess direct rivals like Burnley or Sunderland, like they did in the last couple of weeks.
I mean, the amazing thing about the Wolves result at the weekend was they played really well. They played really, really well. They conceded a couple of soft goals, which has been their biggest problem, which we'll get to. But all in all, the performance was good. There's a nice little balance in midfield built around Andre. Strand Larsen's a really good striker. Coming back from 2-0 down to get to 2-2 at half-time is really impressive. But there is such a nervousness about them for obvious reasons. And they weren't bold enough at 2-2 as the second half wore on, trying to get a second goal. And I think that there is a little bit of a lack of quality. I mean, I think there's some real potential there in Arias, who hit the bar, and the Gomez, who played in the wing, and Strand Larsen I mentioned, a few others. But the defence is poor, really poor. Bueno and 𝗀𝗍𝗀 at the back. look all over the place when they're being attacked. They're getting no cover from the midfield in front of them. The fullbacks don't have a great deal of pace or intensity, and they're easily beaten by pretty average wingers in Jadon Anthony and Larsson last week. And both goalkeepers, both Sarr and Johnston, they concede terrible goals. They don't make enough saves, and it's been an ongoing problem with Wolverhampton Wanderers. And then you've got Vitor Pereira, who is now rowing with the fans inside Molineux. I think it was in the Steve Ball stand. And, it's gone from points and pints to no points and punches. And it was always going to go that way with Vitor Pereira. It always goes that way with Vitor Pereira. So it was quite a surprise. He got that new contract a couple of weeks ago. In terms of Fulham, I think the issue is there was no great renewal about them in the summer. Beyond Kevin, no one of any significance came in. You've got a manager who wants to leave. You've got a team that are aging and a bit slow and lacking a little bit of inspiration. And Smith Rowe and Joshua King, who are the number 10s. Beyond that, there's not much creativity in this team. You're asking Alex Iwobi, who I think is great, to have yet another elite season. And maybe he will. And at times he's looked really good, but not as good as last season. And he's carried this team, I think, for a year. Plus, Sessegnon for Robinson. They lose that attacking threat down the left. I don't think they're a bad team, Fulham. I think they'll stay above the fray, but at the moment, it's a poor run. And without Anderson alongside Bassi looks like the Bassi that I never rated when he first came in, as opposed to the Bassi who in the last 6 months has been one of the best defenders in the league. So, issues there to solve, absolutely. And I think they solve them here. You'd be a madman to bet on Wolverhampton Wanderers, who have not won all season, to go to Fulham and win. I think they'll play all right, Wolves. I think they'll be in the game. But I think you go with the Fulham victory. Again, a lot of nerves now for a lot of teams because the fun stuff is over. The free hits are over. It's serious time from now. And I think Fulham have to win this game. 1.7, not great odds for them to win this game, considering 4 straight defeats. But if you add the nervousness to it and go under 3.5 goals, which is really a conservative bet, I think, is 2.38, which isn't too bad for a Fulham win. Raul Jimenez was a legend at Wolves. He's rejuvenated his career at Fulham. Him to score any time feels like a clear bet for this week. If anyone's going to do it for Fulham, it's going to be him. And I think Fulham win this in a really tight way. 1-0 or 2-1. Fulham by exactly 1 goal is 3.5.
10 match days is a moment to check the leadership and check the table. And we have 2 teams in trouble with Fulham and especially Wolves. And the same we can say about Nottm Forest playing at home against Man United. The third manager of the season, Sean Dyche, also couldn't win his first game in the Premier League against Bournemouth. Really tough game, of course, but perhaps they got a boost in the win in the Europa League at home against Porto, and they want to keep this trend started in Europe, but the numbers are really bad in the Premier League. It's 6 defeats and 1 draw in the last games. And now we have the best Man United in the last 2 years because we hadn't seen back-to-back wins with Ruben Amorim. And now is 3 consecutive wins after beating Brighton. You mentioned 𝗀𝗲 scoring his first goal. Mbeumo also was brilliant. So some good news for Man United. Even Casemiro is playing well.
Yeah, look, it was a great performance against Brighton. We mentioned some of the deficiencies about Brighton earlier on, but what happened is in Man United, I don't think it's a massive thing. They were never punished for being rubbish, and they were never going to get punished for being rubbish, which is why we were quite right to have fun with it for 2 years, because they can even finish like 15th or whatever and spend 250, 300 million pounds on a new front line, and they can turn it around. And Mbeumo, 𝗀𝗲 and 𝘀𝗫 looked great, I thought, against Brighton. Especially in 𝗀𝗲 and 𝗀𝗲. I mean, any other team who finished where Man United finished would not have got these 2 players. But because of how good they were 15 years ago, they are able to bring in these 2 players, and they've lifted everybody. They are so good, 𝗀𝗲 and 𝗀𝗲, and they get better and better and better as the weeks have gone on, and that's lifted everybody else. The rest of it, I still think, is pretty deficient. To be fair, though, I think Lamens is significantly better in goal than Nana and Bayern Dia. So they've got a goalkeeper who can catch and a front line who can score. The rest of it is, and Bruno Fernandes remains a world-class player, which I've consistently said for 4 or 5 years. He's one of the best players in world football. It's a shame he's wasted the best years of his career at a pretty middling Man United. He could have played for anybody, and I mean anybody. This is for me, feel free to argue anybody, but this is a Real Madrid player. This is a Barcelona player. This is a Bayern Munich player. He's incredible, Bruno Fernandes. And he's now, I think, 31. And may just be at the end of a peak where he hasn't won the trophies he should have done. But look at the way he set up one of the goals at the weekend, that beautiful, clever dummy from 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀. Not many people in world football can do that. And so, look, they've got a world-class midfielder, a great front three, and a goalkeeper who can catch. That's solved a lot of problems for Manchester United. Forest have got problems. I think that Postecoglou was obviously a mistake. We knew that at the time. It proved to be a mistake, and Mr. Marianakis did not waste any time admitting that mistake, and he brings in Sean Dyche, who, look, this ain't going to be fun for Forest. They're going to get knocked out of the Europa League pretty soon, despite the victory over Porto, which was impressive, to be fair, last week. But the way they played against Bournemouth is what I'd expect. They are going to do whatever they can to keep every game 0-0 until the 85th minute, where they're going to try and, for 5 minutes, press and score the winner. Sean Dyche has been doing that for over a decade in this league at Burnley and at Everton, and I think it'll work to keep him in the league, which is why I just can't see anyone. I can't see the bottom three. I think West Ham and Wolves are getting far, far too back now. That leaves one place left for me at the moment. I think Forest will get above Leeds. I think Forest will get above Burnley in the end, because it will be a sensible team. It's going to be a sensible team now. I think Milenkovic and Murillo sitting kind of not low block, mid-low block, whatever, look more comfortable. Louise and Anderson in front of them look more comfortable. Going forward, there's not going to be the dynamism of the team of last year, but they'll manage to get their way to 35, 40 points in the end. But look, I think it's a tough game for them. Man United come in good form, and they're going to go ultra defensive. That's going to play into United's hands. So take the United win. I'd struggle to look at Forest here with a victory. 205 United win is actually really good historically, so it's worth taking that. I think it'll be quite tight, so exactly 1 goal, and United win is 4, which I quite like as well. And then they've got some class players, United. Pick which one you like. I'll go on 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀 anytime. He's scoring goals now, has always scored goals in runs. So back on 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀 anytime. Add that with the United win. Really good odds here.
So strong 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀 physically, and now also in peak form with Man United. And then we have Tottenham Chelsea. This is a nightmare of a game for bettors because these teams are so hard to predict. We had Tottenham coming from bad results, and then they won easily at Everton ground 3-0, even if at home they lost to Aston Villa, and they are struggling actually when they are playing at home. It's only 1 win in the 4 games they've played so far in the Premier League. And Chelsea lost to Sunderland. I guess if you cannot win the games, Tom, there is a rule, at least don't lose them. And they lost in the very last minute against Sunderland. If we check the head-to-head between these two teams, is really favorable for Chelsea. Actually, they've won the last 4 games against Spurs, but check the odds, Tom. Really, really high for all the outcomes. So difficult to go 1x2, I think, in this game.
Horrible game to bet on. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to watching it, but it's going to be a really difficult game to predict. Look, I think Chelsea, they're horrendous to bet on. I would avoid Chelsea every single week with my own money because you just don't know. Sometimes they look fantastic. Yeah. Other times they look really, really poor. But their big problem, as every Chelsea fan knows, everyone watching this knows, is centre-half right now. And I don't want to dig out 𝗀𝗻𝗄 and 𝗀𝗏𝗏 too much because they don't expect to be starting for Chelsea, these two guys, not together, certainly. And it's just worked out that way with injuries and misjudged, weirdly balanced investment at Chelsea because they're a player trading business first and a football club second. And that's led to having these two at centre-half. And the way the defending of the late guy, Tosin, had come on at that point alongside 𝗀𝗏𝗏 for the Brobby kind of hold-up, that's pretty poor. And then the midfield not tracking the man who scored the winner for Sunderland. I mean, it's all that's the biggest issue. And offensively too, I like the balance of a midfield that's got Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and another in it. But it needs the other. It can't just have Caicedo and Enzo. It needs the other. They want it to be Lavia. Lavia is never going to be fit. We need to move on from Lavia now for Chelsea. We've got to find someone who can be fit in that group. Move Enzo slightly further forward. this weekend with 𝗀𝗲𝗄 and 𝗀𝗵esse'. That's what he wanted to do with 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗀, who's out. Didn't quite work, I don't think. 𝗀𝗲𝗄 is not as good as 𝗀𝗏𝗏. And 𝗀𝗏𝗄 and Neto. I know 𝗀𝗏𝗄 scored, but just Chelsea have had so many of these wingers, just so many sort of up and down. I think Neto is really good, but I put 𝗀𝗏𝗄 in the group of just like, okay, up and down, up and down, up and down. Is there much special about 𝗀𝗏𝗄? Is he a team player? Is he going to bring you something special? I don't know. I think Neto maybe. I'd fix that on the other side, and I think defence has got an issue, and I'm not sure about the 𝗀𝗵ici𝘄-𝗀𝗏𝗄 relationship either. So a few issues there. In terms of Tottenham, I think it's interesting. They've been really good away and poor at home. I think the way Thomas Frank plays with a better quality side than he had previously always suggested that might be the case. They continue to lack inspiration and creativity. It was interesting to see sort of Kudus more central in the game against Everton, where he played for Ajax. Never really played there for West Ham, though what on earth Potter was doing with him at West Ham is anyone's guess. But I do think that group with Johnson, Kudus, Simons and 𝗀𝗵ici𝘄, maybe 𝗀𝗏𝗃 could work, but it still lacks one really intelligent passer. And Paulinho and Bentancur are now just solidly set as the two midfielders in front of the defensive pairing. It isn't going to be someone in that group. So I think bring someone who's Maddison-like in January. Could be a fantastic season for Tottenham. If not, I think they'll struggle in games like this. Screams draw, frankly, at 3.4. So I'd be looking at that. 1-1, 2-2, maybe 3-3. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. There are deficiencies at both ends, and if Chelsea score the first goal, Tottenham have got to get on the front foot. That is not something they particularly want to do. If you're going to pick a winner, I would just shade for Chelsea, mainly because of how poor the Tottenham home form has been. They have a really interesting 2.5 just for a Chelsea win. Quite like that, and I think I'd put a couple of quid on that if it was me. I do think both teams will score. It's been a recurring pattern in Tottenham games, certainly at home, where both teams scored, Aston Villa and the Wolverhampton Wanderers game. I can see it happening here, either 1-1 or 2-1, either way. But I take Chelsea, both teams to score 4.33.
Difficult game to bet on. Our smart bet tool, the AI powered by Oddspedia, is telling us Chelsea halftime, full time as a top bet is 4.10. The odds are really, really high, of course. Be cautious, but I guess they are taking in consideration the head-to-head between these two teams because it's so difficult to predict both Tottenham and Chelsea. And Tom, it's been a while talking with you, and we haven't mentioned Liverpool yet. Liverpool, Aston Villa is the late kickoff. We have on Saturday. Everything is not working for Liverpool. They are a disaster, especially in defense. Also, a little bit in attack, and Arne Slot is not getting any piece correct. Perhaps only Szoboszlai is working on etiquette in this season, but especially Kerkez, Konate, Van Dijk, they've been a mess this season, and now it's 4 consecutive defeats in the Premier League. The bookies have dropped them, of course, to be favorites in this Premier League. It's going to be very difficult for them to win the title again.
Yeah.
And this game is going to be very, very tough. Aston Villa coming in a great form, 4 consecutive wins, even beating City or Tottenham. And I wouldn't take these odds, Tom. Only 1.5 for Liverpool to win, not even if I'm crazy.
No, I mean, it's the more likely outcome, but I would absolutely not bet on that. Villa were 5 this morning. I don't know where that will be as we get towards kickoff, but I'm taking it. I mean, this is your punt of the weekend. You've got to take these odds because Villa are in fantastic form, taking away the one game in Europe where they lost against Go Ahead Eagles. Beyond that, every game Villa have played in recent weeks has been fantastic. I think 7 wins in 8, something like that. Watkins back in form, Morgan Rogers carrying the ball fantastically. The balance of Onana and Kamara has been great. Matty Cash in the form of his life, scoring another goal this weekend, the winner against Man City. I've always said on the show that anyone next to Pau Torres is a really good pairing for Villa. When Pau is unavailable and it's another pairing, Mings, Konsa, whatever, not to be disrespectful to those guys, but it's weaker because Pau Torres is the best of the group, and we saw that with his goal line clearance against Man City. He's the guy that brings everything together. He's the guy that used to do what Van Dijk used to do for Liverpool, and now he is there. Emi Martinez seems to have had the cloud cleared from him after that want-away summer. It's all going really well for them. It was sad to see Buendia come off at the weekend. I think he's been fantastic. And then Jadon Sancho, of course, throws a paddy about getting taken off himself, having come on for him. So I'd expect maybe 𝗀𝗻𝗀 to be the guy who starts. Not a great deep squad for Villa, but the team is very good. They're high energy again. They're great in behind again. And Watkins in behind against this Liverpool backline, it could kill them this weekend. Look, obviously, Liverpool are still favourites because historically, in the macro sense, they're still one of the best teams in the league. But you mentioned the issues. 𝘀𝗵cie has really struggled. Really struggled since coming in. Got to start Robertson. 𝘀𝗵cie needs some time out of the team. He's not settled at Liverpool at all. That immediately makes Van Dijk better. 𝘀𝗵cie, who I thought was okay at the weekend against Brentford, but across the season, I think he's really struggled. And the right back thing, is it Bradley? Probably going to have to be Bradley with Frimpong injured, but has he played well? No, it was really poor, I thought, against Brentford. I'm not saying that losing Alexander-Arnold is the reason this is happening, but as they knew he was going, Frimpong was not a right back, so they were always going to have Bradley playing at right back. That seems like it's an error of judgment. You had to bring in a proper right back, considering Robertson is still okay as well, to invest in heavily at left back when you had someone and not at right back when you had no one. That's a bit odd. And not having cover for 𝘀𝗵𝗀, that's a bit odd. And then, like another weekend where Florian Wirtz, what's the point? What are we doing with Florian Wirtz? Like, I get at this point you've got to play him because you spent so much money in him, but he's just such a passenger in every game at the moment. And this is a high-intensity league, and he wasn't pressing Henderson. He wasn't doing his defensive work. He might have created a couple of chances and floated around a bit, but I'm not getting it. I'm not seeing it. I don't understand what the vision was at the moment. And look, he is a great player, but great players have failed at great clubs. And so far, we are seeing a poor signing at the moment. And I was pleased that 𝗀𝗍𝗄 got the nod up front. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think he's the best forward. But if Isak is available, does he come back in? What's the balance? It didn't work as a 2 in the Champions League, I don't think. Despite the scoreline, it just looked like it was a poor opponent against Frankfurt who can't defend. So, I don't know, lots to solve here for Liverpool. At these odds, I wouldn't touch it, even though they're the favourites to win. Villa at 5 is crazy. Well worth a punt. If you go for someone and you think it will happen, you've got to take Liverpool. Both teams will score here. Villa will probably score first. Liverpool to win from behind is always a good bet because they always seem to turn up 8 minutes into games. And so if you can nick that early goal as United did and Frankfurt did and lots of teams have in the last few years, could be worth some money. So Liverpool concede first and win, or Liverpool both teams to score. Both teams to score is 2.88.
Well, the smart bet AI is telling us double chance for Aston Villa at this moment is around 2.5. So it's great giving Emery a shot at Anfield, especially with the poor numbers that Liverpool are having at the moment. This is a terrible month of October for the Reds. For Sunday, we have 2 games, West Ham, Newcastle. You mentioned in our show many times, West Ham still no wins for Nuno Espírito Santo. Is 1 point in the last 6 games for the Hammers. Newcastle struggling away from home. At home, very solid, beat Fulham, but again, they are struggling away from home. And now you are pessimistic, you said, with West Ham staying in the Premier League?
Yeah, definitely. Today, I'd back them to go down. And if you can get good odds on it, I would absolutely do it because what Nuno did last week was insane. I cannot explain to you what Nuno Espírito Santo did in the last week. He comes in against Everton and sets a really solid looking lineup with the players that he's got at his disposal, which Potter wasn't doing, and they get a point. They go to Arsenal, you discount that game, but they weren't embarrassed there. 2-0 win, fine, whatever. He goes against Brentford, and he's got the left back at right back, the right back at left back, the number 10 on the wing, no striker. He's playing Andy Irving and Tomáš Souček, who are the slowest pair of players in the league. And he's got a bench filled with people like Magassa and Potts and Fernandes against Leeds, and you've got really good, pacey, young, dynamic, hungry players. And played one inexplicable League Two player I've never heard of, and Tomáš Souček, who's a legend, but he's always been slow. So insane teams, really like inexplicable teams. And then to see that against Brentford on Monday and do it again on Friday against Leeds, I thought Nuno would come in, go back to basics, pick people in their press positions, get them motivated and get some points. And instead, he seems to have landed from Mars, not knowing what football is. I was shocked, absolutely shocked by the teams he picked. And I almost think that he should resign because he clearly don't want to do this. They were metaphorical suicidal teams that he picked in these two games. If he picks a sensible lineup with Fernandes, Potts, and 𝗀𝗏𝗄 in midfield, with 𝗀𝗏𝗿𝗀 and Wilson up front, or Somerville, he puts the left back at left back and right back at right back, maybe in this game. But I honestly couldn't tell you what he's going to do. It was the most insane pair of teams I've ever seen that just played into the hands of the opposition when he had options to not do that. Then you can tell in the game against Leeds, he brings on Potts, Fernandes, 𝗀𝗏𝗿𝗀, and Wilson. And as the game went on, even though Leeds were nervy, it looked a lot better because that was obviously the team to pick. And it just, I cannot believe what Nuno did. To get no points in those two games is shooting both feet off. Absolutely incredible. In terms of Newcastle, the away form has surprised me this year because they seem like such a solid team. So I'm surprised they've struggled away from home. It wasn't a pretty win against Fulham on Sunday, but a win nonetheless. I think there's some great interplay at times between Murphy, 𝗀𝗏𝗿𝗀, and Gordon, sometimes Barnes. I think it was a great show of confidence that 𝘀𝗵cie got the nod at the weekend in front of, it would have been Tonali, I guess, who was struggling with a bit of injury, but Miley, Bruno, and Joelinton, good players. Defence is pretty solid. Look, I just think that if West Ham pick a team that I think makes sense, they can get something from this game. If Nuno does anything crazy, they've got no chance. And even if they play their best team, West Ham, I still think Newcastle are favourites to win it. 1.62 is mad for a Newcastle win. Because, I mean, for a home team like West Ham to be as bad as this is quite shocking. But I think Newcastle win, and they win big, because Nuno, I've lost all faith in him. I think he's been kicked in the head by a horse and lost his mind. Newcastle win 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 is 3.25. Newcastle minus 1.5 goals is 2.75. I think Newcastle at least 2-0 is a pretty safe bet here. West Ham are absolutely hideous, and it's all of their own making, frankly.
Poor West Ham, poor West Ham. And for Sunday also we have Man City, Bournemouth. Great game. This one, Bournemouth second in the standings. What a season for Iraola after losing all his defense in the summer. Beat Forest 2-0, and now it's going to be even more difficult against Man City. I guess no Haaland, no Partey. He couldn't score against Aston Villa, and the team didn't win. They were having a good run, I think, but we were also skeptical a little bit, Tom, for the way this Man City plays, especially in the midfield. They are not spectacular as well. They don't control the games as well as they used to under Guardiola, and perhaps we expected a little bit more from Reinders in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I thought he was the worst player on the pitch against Villa a couple of days ago. Reinders really struggled, and your point's the right one. They cannot control midfield. They just cannot control it without Rodri. You can't lose the best player in the world and expect not to get worse, whoever you are, right? Obviously, that's true, but that's what we're seeing here. They have lost the best player in the world in that position, the player who's kept this team running and won on the Champions League and all of that. And Reinders is a good player, but he's not a great player. He's not a world-class player. He's not a Ballon d'Or winning player, and that's the standard he is being asked to play up to. I thought Foden was pretty good. Beyond that, the rest struggled. And you made the point there, like Erling Haaland is everything to this team, absolutely everything. And he missed a couple of chances. One with the goalkeeper wasn't his best day. And if he doesn't have a great day, they don't have a great day. Defensively, still a little bit suspect. And Donnarumma's bailed them out a few times, certainly did against Villa. So, look, there are problems there, but if they find their groove and Foden finds Haaland, they take the lead in this game, they go on to win it quite comfortably, I think. But as we saw with Villa, as we've seen this season, if you play a high line, they keep getting found out, which, Tottenham as well have done it this season. And Bournemouth, as we saw against Liverpool, and we've seen multiple times this season against the high line, they'll kill you. They'll absolutely kill you if you decide to do that. With Semenyo and Tavernier and 𝗀𝗏𝗿𝗀 look fantastic against Forest and 𝗀𝗏𝗿𝗀 and all the other options they've got. When they get into those positions on the other side of your back line, they're not going to blow it. They're not going to stutter. They're going to find a way to score. And the midfield of Adams and Scott is significantly more powerful than anything City can put together. And I still think the back line looks a little bit suspect, but when it does, Petrovic had a great game against Forest, made a massive difference for them. So, look, obviously, City are favourites to win the game, and if you want to bet on them, good luck to you. The only thing to do is Haaland scores and City win. Pretty much the only way to make some money. don't do handicaps anymore. We don't do clean sheets anymore. It will be a narrow City win with Haaland scoring. Bournemouth is 6.25 to win this game. That is incredibly spicy, I would say. They're a very, very good team with all the attributes that could damage Manchester City, with players who will take their chances when they come, with a defence who can defend at 1-0 up or 2-0 up. At 1-0 up with 10 to go, over the top to Kluivert, 2-0, job done. It's not the most likely outcome. The odds suggest it, but at 6.25, that is worth £5 of anybody's money. And I'll certainly be betting on that this weekend. I can see them nicking it. And then look at those scorers. Semenyo, Kluivert, 𝗀𝗵cie, all fantastic, all likely scorers. I would personally pick from last weekend, 𝗀𝗵cie to continue his form. 𝗀𝗵cie scores, Bournemouth win. But look, you don't need it. Bournemouth win, 6.25. Take it.
Well, we had Liverpool, Chelsea, and Man City to lose last weekend. There was a lot of money to be made there, so why not throw in a penny indeed on Bournemouth or on Aston Villa to upset Liverpool or Man City? And for Monday, we have Sunderland, Everton. Perhaps we are not praising enough this Sunderland. Right now, they will play Champions League football next season. Of course, this is really difficult to happen, but still, what a comeback to the Premier League. 17 points. Now they've opened a gap of 12 points with the relegation spots. Winning in Stamford Bridge. It was great how the fans celebrated that winner in the very last minute. They also beat Wolves at home, and it's because the home form that they are so up in the table is 3 wins and 1 draw in the Stadium of Light. For Everton, ugly defeat, 3-0 at home against Spurs, coming from the defeat also against Man City. But the bookies still place Everton slightly favorites here. Tom, I'm surprised to see these really high odds on Sunderland.
And maybe by the time we get to kick off on Monday, someone would have noticed that and changed it, because they are not favourites to win this game, Everton, under any measure. Look, let's start with Sunderland. An excellent victory at Chelsea at the weekend. It was a classic smash and grab, right? I'm not being detrimental here, but they went 5 at the back, 4 in midfield, very solid, created a few chances, but not much, scrambled in a goal in the first half and nicked one late on. That result was a lot about Chelsea's deficiencies, but you have to execute your plan to get that chance, and that's exactly what they did. I thought Granit Xhaka again was just absolutely fantastic, running the game, organising everyone, a real captain on the field, leader on the field. His passing was great, his organisation was great, positional play at times was great, defending in front of 𝗀𝗵cie and the other centre half, just really, really good. And I think even though Roofs, the keeper, had a bit of a wobbly game compared to recent, he still made a couple of good saves. And look, Isidore is a Premier League striker. This is what we've seen in the opening 10 games. He's scoring goals regularly. He's continually a threat. He's very alert when the ball's bouncing in the penalty area, and that's where the goal comes from, the first one. And the late one was reward for the effort they put in against Chelsea. Were huffing and puffing, and when the organisation wasn't there for Chelsea, it was there for Sunderland. Over the top to 𝗀𝗵cie, back to 𝗀𝗵cie, and that's the game over. So excellent performance, and they've actually been better at home than they have been away this season, which made it even more of a surprise. And that's why they're favourites to win this. For Everton, struggling home and away at the moment. It's a very slow centre midfield. I keep saying this over and over and over again. I've done it with West Ham. I've done it with Wolves. I'm doing it with Everton. If your midfield is slow and lacks power in this Premier League, you're in serious, serious trouble. It doesn't matter if the quality is lower. Bring in the pace and power. Bring it in now. Ghana and Idrissa Gana Gueye do not have it. 𝗀𝗵cie does not have it. And because they don't have it, they find themselves in trouble every single week, Everton. Grealish, Dewsbury Hall and Ndiaye, sure, that's great. It's still slow. Beto or Barry up front, not good enough to play in the Premier League. And the back line, it's very much all square pegs, which is great. And they won't concede many goals, despite the 3 against Spurs. In general, the defence has been quite good. And Pickford's a good goalkeeper, but they don't keep the ball. They don't have much pace, and they certainly haven't got much power. And that will keep on getting you find out in this Premier League, getting you found out. And it has done with Sunderland, with Everton, who I don't think they'll go down, but they're going to be in that mix with Fulham and West Ham and Wolves. We'll hope they can get back in that conversation. Forest, teams we didn't expect. I still think it'll be Leeds, as I've mentioned. I still think it will be Burnley, Wolves, West Ham. But there's two other teams that will get drawn in. Maybe it'll be Forest. Maybe it'll be Everton. Maybe it'll be Fulham. Everton need to start turning up. And if they can't win at home and can't win away, not a good recipe. Sunderland win here, 2.7. Snatch their hands off for that and lump on. Also, who's going to score for Everton? I just can't see it. It's 2 goals in the last 5, in fact, if you include all competitions. 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 Sunderland is 4.5. Fantastic. Take that.
Check the odds, of course, before the kickoff, because the odds right now to back Sunderland are great. Well, this is it in our Premier League show, Matchday 10. Remember, guys, that you can participate in our tipster competitions and make some money. We have even a Premier League one, so I encourage you to participate. And also we have rivals for you where you can create your own tipster competition. Tom Rennie was not with us last week, but his ACCA was correct. So, Tom, let's try first your safe bet.
The safe bet this week is Arsenal to win at Burnley, 1.29.
And the ACCA?
I have an ACCA for you, but I've got something special for you as well. So my ACCA, similar to last week, is a confident trio of wins at fairly low odds. So Arsenal to win against Burnley, Fulham to win against Wolves, and Brighton to win their game as well against Leeds comes in at 3.83. But, and I've double-checked this, Villa to win at Liverpool and Bournemouth to win at City, 31.25.
£10 and you make 300.
I just, you know, that's not the ACCA I'm suggesting here because I like my ACCAs to win. But I really, really like that. And I have put £2 of my own money on it.
Okay, let's
not a big bet,
that.
but it just, I like it. I like it a lot.
Let's leave it like that. Thank you, Tom. Thanks, everyone, for watching. See you next week. Bye-bye.